What happens when activists decide that a church sanctuary is just another venue for political theater? What does it reveal about how our culture now understands or fails to understand the difference between the sacred and the profane? On January the 18th, 2026, roughly 30 to 40 protesters walked into City's church in St. Paul, Minnesota during Sunday worship. They were not there to pray. They were not there to observe. They came to shut the service down. Families with children fled in fear. Tonight, we need to understand what happened, why it happened, and most importantly, what it tells us about the state of religious liberty and sacred space in America today. Here are the facts as we currently know them. Sunday morning, January 18th, City's Church, St. Paul. The service is underway. Families, children, the ordinary rhythm of Christian worship. And then approximately 30 to 40 protesters enter the building and they immediately begin chanting, "Ice out, justice for Renee Good." They move through the sanctuary, they block aisles, they position themselves near exits. Multiple reports indicate that parents were prevented from accessing childcare areas where their own children were located. The service stops. Confusion gives way to fear. Families begin evacuating through whatever exits they can find. One woman is injured in the chaos, but the deeper wounds aren't physical. They were psychological and spiritual. One father later recounts his child saying, "Daddy, I thought you were going to die." This was not spontaneous. Reports indicate that protesters coordinated beforehand in a nearby shopping center. This was a planned disruption of Christian worship, which leads us to the real question: why this church? The activists targeted this congregation because its pastor, David Easterwood, also serves as a field office director for immigration and customs enforcement. Earlier this month, a woman named Renee Good was fatally shot by an ICE agent during a federal operation. From the activist perspective, led by civil rights attorney Nikema Levy Armstrong and community organizer Chantil Louisa Allen, this represented a moral contradiction. How can someone shepherd a flock while directing an agency they believe inflicts fear and violence? So to them, they see it as a non sequitur. And also, being non practical Christians themselves, they don't get it. They frame their actions as a non violent, direct action, holding power accountable. But let's be very clear: Christians have every right and at times an obligation to question civil authority. Catholics and other Christians do it all the time, especially in the area of life. The principle of subsidiarity demands that we examine whether government power is being exercised justly. The Christian tradition has always recognized that peaceful civil disobedience, by that I mean you're on the sidewalk, you have a sign, you sing, you pray, you do not obstruct other people, you do not impede traffic, you do not interfere with law enforcement. And if you are participating in a peaceful protest, this is a morally legitimate way to express your views when confronting what you perceive to be grave injustice. Now, instead, the left locks up Christians who pray when it's, goes against their sacrament of unaliving little children. And they have absolutely no, they go on about their rights and their safety, but they certainly don't extend it to people who disagree with them. Their logic collapses. These people confuse a church with a government office or a public space. You're welcome to come and pray. You're not welcome to come and disrupt. It's private property. They treated sacred space explicitly set apart for divine worship, as if it were just another political venue. And that confusion isn't accidental. It reveals something deeply wrong with the modern secular mindset, the inability to recognize the sacred as sacred. When you enter a church during worship, you are not entering neutral territory. You are entering sanctuary, literally a holy place set apart from the profane world. And Catholics and Protestants have a different idea of this for sure. But today we're talking about the general family of the baptized and the rights proper to them. For 2,000 years, Christian civilization understood churches as not to be interfered with. There are exceptions, like there's the Saint Becket. But one of the reasons why his sin was so heinous is because it profiled the sacred space. It defiled the sacred space. Spaces under God's protection. Places where even enemies could find temporary peace. But the activists saw only politics, only their needs, only their concept of justice. They could not or would not see the sacred. The aftermath revealed how fractured our understanding of religious liberty and the sacred has become. The church announced it was exploring legal options. Religious leaders across denominations and church communities condemned the act. Kevin Ezell called it a desecration of sacred space. Federal prosecutors began investigating potential violations of the FACE Act, which explicitly prohibits obstruction or intimidation during religious worship. Between January 22nd and 23rd, federal agents arrested 3 individuals. Nikema Levy Armstrong was charged under Section 18, the USC, which is conspiracy against rights. Chantil Louisa Allen and William Kelly faced charges under an 1871 law protecting civil rights. These weren't trespassing citations. These were federal conspiracy charges, treating the disruption of worship as a serious constitutional violation. And yet, the media response was muted. Well, of course it was, because if it isn't leftist, it doesn't get reported. And if you don't watch news through independent media, you would never know. ABC devoted roughly 51 seconds to this case. CBS about 14. Much of the coverage framed the protest as mostly peaceful. As the little children are screaming in terror, mostly peaceful, while extensively platforming activists, rationalizations, and justifications. So you ask yourself honestly, what would the response have been if protesters had stormed a mosque? Oh, that would have been a real hoot, wouldn't it? What about a synagogue? But if it's a Christian church, you can just do whatever the heck you want, apparently, if you're a leftist. That's just your entitlement. And you think we're all just going to sit and be nice about it? Because, see, there's a false believable Christianity that we're just roll over and we're always going to be kind to injustice. Because, see, there's a big difference. You call me or Felix a bobblehead or some mocking name, we turn the other cheek. If it's an insult to us, then our faith teaches to turn the other cheek. But if it's an offense towards God, I'd expect my parishioners to lay down their life to protect what goes on at the altar, as I would if I'm free to, because there's a portion of the Mass where we can't be interrupted. But this is serious stuff, very serious stuff. So we know the answer. That if you're Christian, it's getting better. It's a lot better last year or two, and Felix and I will talk about it in a moment. Things are turning around. I'm very encouraged. I'm very encouraged by people like you, because we're not going to take it anymore. Like the old Twisted Sister song said, we're just not going to take it anymore. The double standard that we constantly have to face with media coverage and the presumptions against the rights of God and against the rights of Christians, this double standard tells us exactly which forms of worship our cultural elites instinctively protect. The sacrament of unaliving children, for one thing, and which they see as legitimate targets, which is essentially any Christian that doesn't flap their wrists and agree with them. This brings us to the core issue, and it goes deeper than most people realize. The willingness to interrupt worship reveals how deeply an attitude of consumerism has reshaped our understanding of religion itself. It's why I call it mixed religion. And it cuts a number of different ways. It affects the people that go to church one way, and it affects people who don't go to church another way. The consumeristic mindset is that religion exists only to serve human needs. So if you have a non-believer who loves a believer, then their attitude normally is, well, whatever you need, I don't need that crutch. Or sometimes they say, well, I'm spiritual, not religious, or I can worship God on my own, or whatever. If they're unbaptized, that's one thing. If they're baptized, they have duty as well as benefit from that baptism. And that baptism includes giving God the honor that he's due on his holy day. So if religion exists only to serve us in the mind of these non-believers or these nominal Christians, and it's funny, I saw one of the protesters on the news clip lecturing the Christians on how to believe. Meanwhile, it was very obvious this person has no idea what Christianity is. And it's because the Christianity they believe in is a caricature. It's a oh, be kind and just they're supposed to love everybody. But love to them does not mean the love of self-sacrifice for an other. That's not how they understand it at all. They're not sacrificing for you. They're not sacrificing for law-abiding people. They're sacrificing for their own aims, which is the destruction of what remains of Christian civilization. And we're not going to stop and put up with it. Simple as. We're not negotiating with it. The time for dialogue in that respect is done. Everybody's pretty well, there's a small group that hasn't taken a side, but most people have sort of taken a side. And so the thing is, if religion exists only to serve us, human beings, and our grievances, which apparently a lot of people think churches are for, especially grievances about justice or their perceptions of justice, then they can legitimately interrupt a church service, especially if it's run by an ICE agent. Why wouldn't you? Why would his rights be respected? If they didn't have a double standard, they wouldn't have any standards at all. So if the church isn't serving the right causes or endorsing the right policies, then the consumers have a right to complain, right? To demand better service, to shut it down if necessary. But see, here's a little problem with that point of view. That's not what worship is. Worship is not primarily about us or service to you or me. It's not therapy. It's not affirmation. It's not accompaniment. It's not all this bull crap that postmodern churches teach today. It's not a support group. I mean, if you find comfort in these things as a side effect, this is a good thing, but that's not the primary purpose of it. It's not a political caucus. No matter how righteous the cause is, that's not the purpose of church. Yes, it's involved in the world in some things, but that's not its core mission. Worship is about rendering to God what is due to God. It's about acknowledging a reality that exists prior to our needs. It's more important than you and me. Our feelings, our political opinions or causes, no matter how legitimate these causes may be, God deserves his time. And the people of God, their sacred space. The first commandment doesn't say address all human grievances above all things. It says, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no strange gods before me. And that includes our little ideologies. That vertical obligation, the rights due to God, come first. Not because human suffering doesn't matter, not because justice doesn't matter, because they do, but because getting our relationship with God right is the only foundation for addressing human suffering justly. And you will never get a normatively Christian person to listen to you if you disrespect our God. It's just not going to happen. There will be no dialogue. And I don't think the left cares. I think the left is perfectly happy. In fact, watching the events the last couple of weeks, and we're going to talk to Felix and you too. You can comment in the comments. We're live. We'll talk right back to you. It appears to me that they're actually trying to provoke a violent conflict. They're doing everything they can to poke the bear. And then they're surprised when the bear eats your arm. Oh, the injustice of it all. Listen, if I walk into a cave with a hunk of peanut butter and I wake the bear up and then it starts there and I'm poking it with a stick and it bites my arm off, whose fault is that? The bear's fault? No. When you interrupt sacred time and sacred space, you are making a theological claim, whether you realize it or not. You're saying that human priorities trump the honor due to God alone. You are saying that God can wait while we handle our business. You are treating the Almighty as if he's a vendor who will still be there when we get around to him. Typified by those little statues of bobble-headed Jesus, right? You stick them up on a shelf. But when you need something, oh, Granny has cancer. Well, there you go. You pray to God, right? Where's the honor of the Sabbath? God's holy day. This is Mick religion in its purest form, what we saw with this protestation. And like I say, you can be Mick religion as an adherent. In other words, you can compartmentalize your religion into just Sundays and just address God when you need something. Or you can take the Christian path seriously and you realize that there's a process, a spiritual maturation where we're really born again. We die to sin. We learn to love what God loves and hate what God hates. And I always get a kick out of it when people object to that. God doesn't hate anything. Read the Bible. He hates lots of stuff. And you're supposed to hate it too. Not people, but evil. And also this notion that where we don't separate opinion from fact. So the thing is, this notion of Mick religion that we can interrupt, modify, change, or discard something whenever something more pressing comes along. A lot of the mainstream churches, a lot of the big churches, they change their teachings so frequently. My joke is spin the wheel, see what to believe next week. What's with this? That doesn't reflect a timeless God. That reflects a bunch of humans trying to do something, according to the whims of the world, whatever fad is in place today. And then what they do is they try to find aspects of scripture that support what they say. So this is what we call proof texting. So they say, oh, it's in the Bible. Well, sure, if you ignore the other half of it. It's kind of crazy. This reveals beyond these activists. They didn't just fail to recognize sacred space, which is bad enough for their own souls, because I want them to go to heaven. I'm mad at them, right? But I love them in the sense that, now I don't love them the way they define love. Definitely not. I love them in the sense that I want them in heaven. I love them. I want their ultimate good, which is how St. Thomas Aquinas defines love. It's not how the world defines love. So the thing is that these people, God love them, they're hobbled. They're moral cripples. They cannot imagine there might be something or someone, namely God, whose rights supersede even legitimate human grievance. See, that's the thing. We don't even have to say their grievances are illegitimate, whether we think they are or not. It doesn't matter compared to God. And that's the crisis we're facing, both within the Christian church and outside the Christian church, and how we engage with friends who are, good people by the natural law kind of definition, who are allies of Christians, even if they aren't actual Christians. So that's basically is like non-leftist Westerners are typically not hostile to Christianity, even if they don't believe in it. So the crisis we're facing is not just secularism, but a form of secularism so complete in its own mind that it can't even grasp what we mean when we say God has rights, that God has claim on us. Well, I didn't choose it. I had a friend that used to argue with me. Well, I didn't choose baptism. My parents did it for me when I was a baby. So that doesn't count. I'm afraid it does. Because normative Christians believe that it's not a proclamation that you believe in God. Even the demons believe in God. We believe that baptism sets a soul, it changes a soul ontologically. $7 word that means your soul is permanently changed. It's marked with a character. The soul of a baptized person is different than the soul of an unbaptized person. Read John chapter 1 to see the effects of this. And so the thing is, you see, is that a lot of people don't understand that, even those who have undergone a ritual many years ago, but don't live the faith that goes along with that ritual. God deserves worship regardless of how we feel about it or what else is happening in the world. The traditional understanding, the one we're trying to restore on this channel, says that you don't interrupt the Mass even if Caesar himself walks in the door. Why? Because something greater than Caesar is happening on that altar. Something that all of Caesar's legions cannot touch. But in a consumerist worldview, there's nothing greater than our causes, our feelings, our sense of injustice. Everything, including God, gets subordinated to a therapeutic project of addressing human grievance. And that is why the distinction between the sacred and the profane matters, and why we keep coming back to it. Modern secularism no longer recognizes the sacred as a real category. It cannot distinguish between a church and a city hall, between worship and a political rally, between sanctuary and public square. This isn't an accident. It's a logical conclusion of a worldview that reduces all of reality to politics and power. If there's nothing transcendent, in other words, if there's nothing beyond this sort of four-dimensional existence that we experience day to day, there's no vertical dimension to existence, then a church is just a building. A worship service is just people gathered around for shared opinions. Disrupting it is no different than disrupting every other meeting, and that's what they believe. I get it. I get it. See, I understand what they believe. They don't understand what normative Christians believe. And they have no interest. They have no interest. It's precisely the worldview actual Christians have always rejected. The sacred exists. It's real. It's prior to politics, prior to government, prior to our individual preferences. When we set apart a church as a sacred space, we're not making a political statement. We're acknowledging a reality that exists whether we like it or recognize it or not. When a society loses the sacred, like during COVID, they wanted all the churches to close. I didn't close a single one of my churches. Not a single one. The deputy sheriff said, would you mind if you don't advertise that you're the only church of your tradition open? And I said, I had no problem with that. I figured God's already sent me the people meant to be under my care. So I ended up, by word of mouth, there was a lot of extra people that came during COVID. And when COVID ended, off they went back to the churches that betrayed them. But see, the thing is that it's interesting because in our tradition, we believe that our sacraments are necessary. Whereas in some cases, there were churches that remained open, like some evangelical churches remained open, just like I did. And they don't believe in sacraments, but they do believe in the commandment to give God the honor that he's due. So it was kind of funny that, who would ever thought 30 years ago that a traditional Catholic and evangelicals on some things are closer than them and liberal Protestants and traditional Catholics with more modern Catholics. We didn't shut down. We trusted in God's providence. And we were proven right, because the only people that got ill in my congregation were ones that took the medication that was supposed to keep them safe. So it's anecdotal evidence. It's not going to prove anything, but I can tell you that's exactly what happened. And then I have these people who are saying, oh, well, come back. Every group saying we're the real church. Well, if you were, why did you close? What God do you believe in exactly that has no efficacy? But I'm on a rabbit hole, as I want to do. See, the thing is, if you strip away the sacred, all remains is institution and power, pure, naked power. And that's what we witnessed in St. Paul, the city, not the saint. Power exercised against families at prayer who recognize no authority higher than their own cause, their own outrage. Now, some defenders, including Don Lemon, invoke the First Amendment. Don't they get a right to free speech? Of course they do. And you know what? You'll find us an ally on that issue. On the public sidewalk outside the church, and not impeding people going in and out, not harassing them. Silently with a sign, or sing, or pray, or do something like that. You don't harass people. But the majority, whenever I find a good lefty, and what I mean by that is like just a decent left-leaning person, I cherish them because they're so rare. Have you noticed? They are so rare. What I see is people screaming in little kids' faces and ordinary people. So am I biased? Yes, absolutely I'm biased. But I try the best of my ability. I have over the years. I'm in my mid-50s. And in all this time, I mean, I started off especially younger. I would listen to everybody. But I'm so naive in some ways. I like to see the good in people. And I've come to realize that what's happened in this time of polarization is there is truly good and bad people. And it's not about politics. It's not, I mean, the politics are a correlation, but they're not a causation. There are people that are considerate and respectful first to God. And if you're respectful to God, then you typically treat other people at least basically humanely. And it's the exceptions that prove the rule. Because, of course, there's horrible examples of bad Christians. The thing is that the First Amendment does not give you the right to hijack private worship, to terrorize children in their own church. And legal experts are pretty clear. Crossing the threshold into private property to deliberately disrupt a service isn't protected speech. It's trespassing at the very least. It's disorderly conduct, potentially conspiracy to deprive others of their constitutional rights, and that itself is another law. And the FACE Act, amended to explicitly protect religious worship, recognizes the distinction. Minnesota state law makes it a gross misdemeanor to intentionally block someone from entering or leaving a place of worship. These laws don't pick favorites. They protect churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples, because worship is foundational. So where does that leave us? First, what happened at City's Church was wrong, full stop. Grief over Renee Good's death, the grief and the concern, it's legitimate. We all have our opinions on it. We've all seen the videos from the different angles. To me, I thought it was pretty clear what happened. And then I actually had a parishioner come up to me and say, no, they each saw it quite differently than I did. So there you have it. There's a difference even looking at the same video. And questions about moral tension between pastoral ministry and ICE leadership are legitimate. These questions are all legitimate. The reason why I'm a little angry or a little prickly on air today is because it really crossed a line. It really crossed the line. And quite frankly, and some of you think this way, and some of you, I'm just fed up after all these years of having to endure this leftist BS on air through the legacy media and their selective reporting. I am sick of it. I'm sick of churches, from the pulpit, crapping on police. There was a case in Clearwater. I mentioned this a couple times. The priest did nothing. The policeman was there, did nothing wrong, didn't hurt anybody. And the priest got up and condemned this man in front of his whole family for being a police officer in an inconvenient time. And you'd think priests of all people on this planet should know that one bad egg does not reflect upon the rest. I mean, it reflects upon us flatter, but it does not, mean that we're all bad.
Wow.
And yes, there's bad police officers. One of the YouTube I like is there's these civil rights lawyers channels. Some of you have seen them. And it's the lawyer telling you how to address police who are trying to, go beyond their scope, and how to politely be assertive in the face and know your rights, know what they're allowed and what they're not allowed to do. I'm all for you guys learning that. I want to learn that properly too. My grandfather was a policeman, and I used to, in my old pre-clerical career, I used to help hire them. So I'm very pro-police, but I also know there's bad police. So, what we should want is the real, true, and good. So if there's a bad cop, we get rid of them. But you don't splatter everybody, like especially people following orders that are legitimate because they're in the law. If you don't like the law, then elect people that change the law. It's not rocket science. You don't get angry at a policeman for following the law. You get angry at a policeman for refusing to enforce the law equally. And that causes a lot of trouble. I would say in this last 10 years, and some of you may agree with me, and if you agree with me, put it in the comments. If you disagree with me, put it in the comments. But I think that the selective enforcement of laws, in other words, not enforcing laws in certain cases, causes a greater risk to public safety than a bad law that was enforced. And hopefully you can get the law changed and someone pardoned or something. But jeepers, if you only enforce laws under certain circumstances and you take it upon yourself to be that arbiter, then people are going to lose faith in the system. And that's already happening. I mean, there's probably 30-40% of people that have real questions about the system, and that's not good for society's stabilization. So how do we get out of that hole? It's very hard right now. That old devil's so smart, he's got us all fighting amongst one another, even people that are of goodwill, and people, at the end of the day, part of the problem is too, and again, comment if you've run into this. So say 30 years ago, if I accidentally said something that offended you, I'd be like, if you said to me, hey, Mikkel, you said that, when you said this, it hurt me because it blah, blah, blah. I'd be so horrified because I would never intentionally hurt somebody, right? But what's happened in the last 10 years is manipulators use that. If they can perceive that you have goodwill, they take it as weakness. So they use your apology against you, which is why people on the right are now told, don't ever apologize to a leftist, ever. And I won't. If you're offended, good. Good. I'm glad you're offended because you can just shut me off. You can change the channel. You don't have to listen to me. It's a free country. If you're going to listen, then you're going to hear what I have to say. And as long as you're respectful, you can disagree with me and I'll hear what you have to say. And I think that's the way we build a better world, one person, one relationship at a time. But I got to tell you, we have an uphill battle because I've seen a shift in the last 10 years. And I know some of you probably have too, because like I say, I used to be able to apologize. I want to be able to apologize if I'm a jackass. But, which unfortunately is not that infrequent, but you can't with a leftist. You still can with your friends, but you can't, because what they do is they weaponize that. And it's a casualty, a sort of an anthropological casualty of the craziness that's what happened in this world. So the thing is, invading the sanctuary during worship and blocking parents from their children and terrorizing families, that's something we kind of should be able to agree on whether we're lean right or left. And that crossed every moral line that civilized society draws between dissent and intimidation. Second, this is not an isolated incident. It's a symptom of a culture that no longer understands sacred space. They can't comprehend what we mean by rights due to God. Those of us who are committed to restoring the Christian order need to understand what we're up against. We're not just fighting bad policies, misguided activists. We're confronting a worldview that literally cannot comprehend the categories we're working with. There's no bridge to build. We don't even share the same frame of reality itself. And third, our mission. It's not coercion. If it was within my power to force everybody into my religious worldview, I wouldn't force a single person ever. Ever. That's sacred to us. God gave us this choice. Since the fall of Adam and Eve, there's been a choice that has been to either tend towards good or tend towards evil. And even in non-believers, you see a difference in secular people. There's those who seek the real, true, and good to the best of their ability, and those that get poisoned by this Marxism and this leftism, and they just hate everything. And they're like a weird combination between Gnostics and Neo-Cathars. Look up the Cathars and Albigensia. It's interesting. And you'll see a lot of parallels with what the postmodern left teaches today. The thing is that our mission is not coercion, it's preservation for our own communities. For our own communities. You know what? There's a part of me that's just a little bit libertarian. And what I mean by that is, hey, you want to believe in the great Xenu, or you don't want to believe in God at all. That's your choice. But don't inflict that upon us any more than we inflict our beliefs on you. Now, if you're baptized, well, then, yeah, you're going to get a little lecture from me on your duties of baptism. But that's not because I hate you or I think I'm better than you. It's because I love you and I want you to go to heaven. And the problem is, this world teaches you that love is always kindness and softness. Listen, some of the most loving things that have ever been done to you are assertive and blunt. Certainly to me. Certainly to me. 2 days ago, I called a friend of mine. He's been a friend for 30 years or more. And he was my old Navy chief, my basic training. And I'm a young officer candidate who doesn't know up from down. And how many people still stay friends with their old drill instructors, right? But I did. And, he gave me some tough love and helped contribute to the good in me today. And so that's just it. It's not, sometimes you do need to give people a pat in the back or a hug, but sometimes they need a gentle push, or sometimes they need a kick in the rump. Your or my job is, and maybe you could even say a prayer before you decide, God, what does this person need to hear? So that's why I gave that presentation in kind of a pokey kind of way, because this is important. This isn't just a matter of, well, you believe in this and I believe in that. No, you know what? You can believe in whatever you want. I don't agree with Islam, but I don't go and bother people at the mosque, right? And they don't bother me. We have our own beliefs in that thing, and we coexist. And if we're at the store or in traffic, we're kind to one another. We're courteous. We're good citizens. There's no conflict there. So why does there have to be, there used to be a little bit more humane disagreement between people that lean right and left. And really, it's not about politics. I hate that term, right and left. It's convenient. We all know what it is. It's not really the problem. It's not really right and left. It's how you see the world. It's do you see that there is an absolute truth to be known, real, true, and good? Or do you think that it's all just, power and whatever your opinion is, if you get the most votes on something? So that's the two worldviews, really. And they can't mix. There's no dialogue between them, because they're just two. It'd be like, vacuum and fire. They can't exist together. So the thing is that we want to preserve the space, the physical, the legal, the spiritual spaces where authentic worship remains possible, protected, where families can gather without fear, where the transcendent can break into the ordinary, where we can fulfill our primary obligation to render God what belongs to God. And that's what sanctuary means, and that's what we're defending. And it's there's not going to be a lot of normative Christians that support that protest. And I don't think Don Lemon's a bad guy necessarily. I mean, conservative media typically does. He might be a nice guy. Well, actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I guess there's a tape out there saying
he's a bad guy.
He goes after people because of the basis of their color. No, I'm glad, Felix. This is what I like this here is like, you guys give me some pushback if you disagree with me, because it's, you know what, Felix just proved a point here. I do try to see the good in people, but if you're bad, then I kind of, I might be mad for a little bit, but I try to see the good. So I can probably tell you something good about every, certain recent historical character that I know enough about. I can probably say a couple good things about them, even though I dislike them. But I just remember when Felix just interrupted me there, I think, oh, wait, now he's on tape saying he hates people of a certain color. I guess people that look like me and Felix. But anyway, that's fine. Whatever. I mean,
that could be fun.
He has a right to say it. See, this is where I would disagree. So here's where I would say I'm pro free speech. I think he should have the right to say it, as long as he's not, trying to drive his car over me for it, or if he's entering my church. And I shudder to think what would happen if he entered in a lot of the churches I know. It wouldn't go well for him.
Yeah, I can just think of a couple of people.
It would be holy, but in a different manner. But anyway, so the thing is that, when does this protest become persecution? And when does a righteous cause cross a line in trampling the rights of others and the rights of God? These activists believe their cause justified their methods. But Christianity has always insisted that means matter as much as ends. See, that's the difference between a Christian and a Machiavellian. The ends never justify no, I shouldn't say never, but the ends, if the means are evil, the end can't justify those means. So you cannot achieve justice through injustice. You can't solve racism with other racism. You can't. You can't solve stealing with more stealing. You can't solve murder with more murder.
You can't use the ring to destroy the ring. For any Lord of the Rings guys.
There you go, from Lord of the Rings. So peace through violence or truth through coercion. That's not. It's so funny. The leftists, they wanted this ministry of truth under the last regime, and they wanted like to
unreal.
People.
That crazy lady.
Thank goodness there's still some good Democrats left that realize, oh, this is a bad idea. Well, yeah, because guess what? It could be used on you too, right?
Yeah.
So a very bad idea. The minute you start allowing other people to tell you what's acceptable opinion, like that's the whole point of free speech. The whole point of free speech is we're supposed to offend one another. Right?
Yeah.
It's we offend one another so that then the other person brings argument counter. And if you get a rational person over time, it normally doesn't happen the first session. People change their views. They change their views. Very rarely from one good argument. But, sometimes if you plant a seed, over time, they change their views. So the precedent this case will set, it'll be interesting. So we'll pay attention. So Felix, what did you make of all that?
I got a couple of issues here. For one, there's this thing. I'll start with the one that keeps going off in my head. They keep bringing up the FACE Act. Right. Like thank God we had the FACE Act when... Right. My opinion is we don't need the FACE Act. This is a clear violation of the First Amendment. This is what bothers me. Don Lemon came and whatever. Don he was with this group that disrupted this sermon, this worship service, and that worship service is protected under the First Amendment already. They are peaceful assembly.
Did you notice how he threw them all under the bus?
Oh yeah, I'll just watch. I'm a reporter. Like you haven't been a reporter for ages, my man. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah. Well, especially when you help organize it, you can't just say you were the innocent reporter.
Yeah.
You're leading it. You're going right up to the pastor.
Oh yeah, there was some producer in Don Lemon's ear say, "Hey, tell him to organize. Tell him to go down at this time." I guarantee you. I mean, allegedly. Let me take that back. Allegedly.
Allegedly. We don't want anybody saying that Felix and I are unjustly, But it is kind of interesting. Okay, you know what? There's lots of things that lefties can make fun of people that lean right with too. But it is true. It's a observation of us non-leftists. I don't like calling myself right. I'm not really. I'm kind of a weird mix of things. But anyway, but I call myself non-left.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I'd say something that's common amongst non-leftists is that we've observed that lefties throw one another under the bus, no problem. They do it.
Non-commie, like I'll go with non-commie. And I'm sorry this gets repetitive at this point, but one thing I always say is Democrats are the enemy, but Republicans are not your friends. I firmly believe that.
I'm sorry, Felix, I missed that first part. You said Democrats are
the enemy. The Democrats may be the enemy, right? But Republicans are not your friends.
I that's a good one. I don't think I've heard that, and
I made that up. Or I stole that from someone else, more vague, I guess. If someone else can, but I'm pretty sure I made that up.
The one that I like, and again, it's not mine. It's someone a lot smarter than me. But they said there are already two parties in the United States of America: the party of stupid and the party of evil. And the hilarious thing is, everybody knows which one is which.
Everyone knows which one is which. So, 100%.
So I say, and I tell people, you can get to heaven stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't get to heaven evil.
You can't get to heaven evil. And you know what? When I say that, I got to be a little bit more clear. This isn't about the voter base. I'm talking about the politicians. When I say Republicans and Democrats. Really. Because because you were correct in your assessment too. There is the party of good and evil, and
I think what, Felix. If we did a survey, I bet you 90% of our congregation was once upon a time Democrat.
Yeah, me. I'm in there.
Yeah.
All right. I told people I shook Obama's hand. That's famously.
Yep. Right. And I'd say, and you know why? Because people that want to do good in the world and they end up in churches, they go with the party that they perceive as taking care of people. But
Yeah.
see, there was a shift, and it's funny. They go on about various shifts of how party orientation was. But again, I don't want to make this about politics, but it is an interesting anthropological
Well,
observation that basically the working people, the ordinary working class, the parties have switched, like in terms of who's taking care of them,
yeah.
and
Who's
that's
voting for what?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, the thing is, it real boils down to, I bet you, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, stick it in the comments if I'm wrong, and if I'm right, you can stick it in the comments too. But the thing is that, like, if I went back in time, I went into the 1970s. My understanding, again, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is I could sit with somebody who's really pro-union. Like my brother runs a union, right? So he and I are opposite. We are always opposite sides of stuff. But I'm so proud of him. Like, I mean, I don't really like unions, right? I'm not saying all of them are bad. Some of them are more like employee associations, and they keep high standards, and those are good. Those are good unions. And I don't even know if my brother's union is a good union or a bad union. I just know he's good and he works hard for his people, and I'm proud of him. But the thing is that back in the 70s, would fight about, okay, well, should union membership be mandatory? And there's arguments pro and con, right? There's arguments can be made pro and con. And of course mine is always pro individual liberty, so I would say you should be able to opt out, and then the union guy will say, oh yeah, but then you shouldn't benefit from any raises we win for you and all this kind of stuff, right? So there's a debate. But the thing is, in the midst of all that fight, which I'm sure could end up with some raised voices from time to time, everybody still wants healthy kids, an affordable home, clean water, a workplace that doesn't kill them, right? We all share the same values. Now we don't. We really don't. So it's pretty crazy. Like it's very hard. I look at my own life in the last 10 years, Felix, and most of my lefty friends, there's a couple exceptions. They just fade away. They don't want to talk anymore, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault. I'm as much to blame as they are. It's the polarization, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And whereas before I enjoyed having people that really differed with me in my circle, so I didn't drink my own bathwater, it's just the world frame separated so far that there's just nothing to talk about. Everything you're going to say is going to be perceived as an insult.
I remember the beginning of that because, all right, so like online, and again, this was like during the Obama administration. I was one of those. If you criticize Obama, my eyebrow went up. I'm like, why do you really hate Obama? I was one of those idiots. And again, like, forgive me, Lord. All of that. That was really dumb of me. But I understand the mindset. Okay, because I was part of the hive mind, the Borg, for a while. So I definitely understand the mindset.
Well, I was up in Canada during his primary, and I was on a military course. And again, I'm Canadian, so I have no horse in this race. Like in terms of a political party, I really don't. I'm one of the few that are either making this video or watching this video that doesn't. And but the thing is, of course, I have my opinions. But the thing is, I'm up in Canada and I'm watching Barack and Hillary go at it. And there was we were all cheering for Obama. Everybody, didn't matter, conservative Canadian, we were all cheering for Obama. And the reason being is, well, you got a couple problems. Like, first of all, John McCain just was not a compelling leader, even for the non-left. And then you look at, Obama, if he had done what he said he was going to do, he probably would have been this great unifier. But I think he was in office like 2 weeks or a week, and he just said, well, we won. And he just dismissed everybody that didn't agree with him. And that sort of was the beginning of the end of people liking him on the right. But everybody on the right that I knew, we were cheering him because we thought, well, maybe this is the guy that's going to finally, help bridge some stuff.
When I should have woke up was after the healthcare thing, but even then I was like, I was disappointed. Don't get me wrong, but I remember when this went down, because even the news was like, he's going to waste all his capital on just passing this healthcare bill. No one's going to be happy, and that's exactly what ended up happening. And it was like the vote was up for the public option, Obama was conveniently left the country. Because the public option is the only way that Obamacare would have actually made sense. It probably still would have failed, or probably would have failed worse, but that's what people were looking for.
Well, if Minneapolis has taught us anything, I'm not talking about the ICE thing. I'm talking about the Leering Center. If the Leering Center has taught us anything, You've got to be
Yeah.
very careful about having government run anything at scale.
Yeah.
Right.
We got to get rid of all of it.
All of it.
Or like good 90% of it.
Yeah.
Like
Or at
I
least
don't
make
buy any of it.
everything personally accountable. Like I don't want to get on this rabbit hole. We won't go too far on it, but I just wish that
dig a little in the rabbit hole. Just let's play it a
every
little bit of it.
major expenditure that comes administratively. So in other words, not legislatively, but administratively, like a manager, a government manager, like a name should be on it. Like they have to own it, so that if there's fraud, there's someone to put in jail.
Yeah.
So every dispersal. Some of you have worked like for a bank, like I did. Hey, if our initials on something, right, and money stuff goes missing, who do they go after? The person that signed it out, right? Signed on it. Who authorized it? If I give a bad loan, my little signature number's on there. Who do they come after if it was a bad loan? Yeah. There's someone to hang. So that's one of the things that government needs is there has to be every single dispersal. There has to be someone to hang if it's wrong. Yeah. And you know what? All of a sudden, all this fraud is going to disappear because someone will hang if it's wrong,
Yeah.
Now
You need a couple of. We're talking figuratively, but this is actually such a great point that you bring up that there hasn't been any real consequence for like Don Lemon. Like it's funny, people are like, oh, Don Lemon's looking at charges. I'm like, if he gets arrested, I'll eat my hat.
No, like, even okay, he might, Felix, only like Don, God love him, he's not really that important, and he's kind of irritating even to the leftists, right? So I can sort of see them throwing him under the bus, but I'll give you an example up in Canada, and it happens down here too, but it's just such a blatant example. They abused, and it's important for you guys to know what happened in Canada, because what happens in Canada can happen in the US with the right circumstance pretty easily. So their constitution is very similar to the U.S. Constitution, except it doesn't have a Second Amendment, and it doesn't have the. I think it doesn't have the same right to free speech, and it doesn't have the same right to
First Amendment, right?
The same way. But what I'm getting at is a lot of the constitutional rights are identical because they probably borrowed them from the U.S. Constitution. But anyway,
right?
They unlawfully enacted martial law under what's called the Emergency Measures Act, and they renamed it something, but that's what it used to be called.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
They were debanking people, they were freezing bank accounts, they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff without court order, and they were using this Emergency Measures Act, and they were surveilling people, and they were doing all kinds of stuff that's contrary to the normal rights of the citizen. The abuses were called out in court. It was determined that the government acted illegally, and just like Felix said, not a single person has any accountability for taking away the constitutional rights of tens of millions of people. There's no accountability. Those elected officials and those senior bureaucrats that signed off on the suspension of constitutional rights should have deep consequence. You know what I suggest? You don't want to put them in prison. I'm not actually a big fan of prison unless it's violence. You take away their pension. You take away their pension and any transfers to their family, any asset transfer to their family that was done 10 years prior to the offense. It all gets confiscated. Yeah. And that's exactly what I think that we should be doing to government bureaucrats and politicians who enrich themselves on the people's expense. Don't put them in jail. What does that do? They're probably like the movie show, the mob boss has his comfy pillow and everything, and he's got his cell phone, and he's running his little business, and someone comes in with champagne. They don't need that. Just take everything they have.
Yeah. No, you go there to learn to be a criminal, really, especially if you're only in there for a few years. You come out knowing all sorts of hustles more often than not. I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of with you on that, but
well, you can disagree with me too on all this stuff. Like I say, guys, if you don't know, if it's not de fide, but I mean that means of the faith.
Yeah,
you can disagree with me on everything, and I'm not offended, or I don't think you're stupid or evil just for disagreeing with me. Well, it depends on what you're.
It depends. Yeah. Let's hold on.
I like to put babies in the blender. That's kind of evil, right?
Well, yeah. Clearly, we're like, I think 98, 95%. There's a couple of things about that kind of bug me a little bit. Like, again, this thing with the FACE Act, I'm bringing it up one more time. I think it's a big, like, everyone keeps bringing it up. The FACE Act, the FACE Act, the FACE Act. And I think that's such a misdirect. It's a First Amendment violation. I think this is on purpose that they're trying to separate the church from the First Amendment. And
do we have a lawyer in the house tonight? We have a couple lawyers as parishioners, but I don't think any of them watch our show live. But the thing is that
let us know
no,
in
if
the
we do,
comments.
they could tell us, because to me, if my guess is, and you guys can weigh in the comments if you have an opinion on it, but
Yeah.
I think that it's probably that they charge on what they can easily prove. So different laws have different sort of standards of proof for what they need to demonstrate, and so there's probably a little bit of a chess game going here. Because I
And I'm
always
gonna
used to
sound
wonder,
like
why do they charge them in this and this, and then they drop charges typically, and they try to make a deal, and they do, So I don't know.
Again, I think that's I think that's the mystery. I think that's kind of part of the problem. Is I think there's too many amendments and to these laws. Like it's kind of crazy. And again, you're going to the FACE Act when the violation is right here on the first one. Did the cat mess up? What just happened?
I looked at the comments, so we'll get to them. But we should start giving out like at least verbal prizes to our audience, right? Because that was
I already
classic.
know which one you're looking at.
Yeah, you know which one?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Felix. That was very rude of me.
No.
I went to click the button just so I could see the comments on the screen in front of me. So I have to turn this way to hit the button. And then when I did, I saw one of the comments that made me laugh about the name of the show.
Yeah, no, totally. No, I just think it's I think it's on purpose that they're trying to separate church, because I firmly believe, and again, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, church is like the ultimate example of a peaceful assembly. And peaceful assembly, the minute a protester comes in to disrupt, it's no longer peaceful, and the assembly has the right to defend itself. And to protect their right of peaceful assembly.
Well, it's kind of like castle doctrine, but for a church in a way, right? I mean, there was a case
100%.
up in Ocala, some fool, it was more than one incident, like in a 6-month period. But the one that we had near us was in Ocala up north, and someone drove a car through the front of a church, got out, then started pouring gasoline everywhere, and started trying to light it while all the people were inside.
What are we doing?
So there's a lot of crazy people, right? Like,
it's crazy. I don't know.
You don't know?
I would say evil. I would say evil.
Yeah.
No. Crazy. I mean, crazy means that it's a mental problem. I think this is now we're really tapping into the spiritual realm. I saw this clip that kind of, and I won't go too crazy on this, but I saw this clip on the internet of this guy just going crazy at a church, trying to rip off I don't know, maybe you saw this, but he's trying to like get into the tabernacle, and he rips the cross off, and then like when he tries to go in, his body paralyzes and he just falls backwards.
Wow.
Like so
kind of like the vampires in the movie when you have holy water or the host.
Yeah, but and again, this was a real clip. It was longer than it was like a minute long. You see the police come in trying to get him out, and he starts screaming blasphemies or whatever. And the minute he tries to approach the tabernacle, he would freeze up and just fall backwards. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
It won't.
But anyway, point is, this is spiritual.
What's that, sorry?
No, I'm sorry. I was to say the point is that this is all spiritual.
Well, yeah, it can be. So it won't surprise some of our audience is probably right into exorcists and stuff, and they know all about that stuff. But they, an exorcist, a trained exorcist, has to learn a lot about psychology, because you don't want to presume a preternatural thing if it's a psychological ailment. So to Felix's point, like I'll give you 2 stories of something that happened to me in church context. One was preternatural and one was psychological, as an example. So there was a guy in the middle of the sermon one day. He used to answer back, and that's not Catholic tradition. That doesn't happen. But he was answering me back, and then he decided to praise the Lord and take off all the clothes at the top of it. So he's a little crazy, right? So could that be possession? Well, I mean, it's possible it was some form of oppression, or more likely it was just mental illness. So that's an example of that. Now, an example of that I ran into, and my story is pretty mild compared to some priest friends I've had that actually have done exorcisms, and I've only done minor exorcisms, and every priest does that. So, but anyway, one time I knew I was going into a group that there was something really dark going on, and I had our Lord in a pix over my heart for a sick call, and I knew I was doing on the sick call after this meeting, and so I took him early, and I had him over my heart under my clothes here. And as I walked into this group, I've never seen anything like this before. There was like these spasms, like it was just one person. It could be a nervous thing, could be whatever, but like 3 or 4 people were having these spasms around their jowls and their neck. And it was like, and I remember looking at that and just saying, and I talked to our Lord. I just said, Lord, well, we know this stuff is real, but that's just weird. What are you telling me? What do you want me to know with this? And basically saying, okay, what do you want me to do here? So basically I just prayed a prayer to St. Michael, and when my duty was done there, I moved along. But it was interesting because it was definitely a manifestation, and they didn't know I had our Lord in my pocket, right? So so you're not supposed to, by the way, so you don't abuse the Blessed Sacrament. You don't use them as a talisman or something like that, but you definitely a priest on his way to a sick call, or facing something like you definitely think are demonic, that's a different matter. But we don't, sometimes our evangelical friends accuse Catholics of superstition and stuff like that, and sometimes it's
you can get true, into that.
But again, that's a beyond the scope. But now, no, that's, in this case, it's not superstition. It's spiritual warfare.
Yeah, no, 100%. Here's the other thing. I'll tell you what bothers me, and I actually got to give props to Dave Smith. I don't know if you're I think you're familiar with him, and he has a show called Part of the Problem.
I have. Really great. I think I might have. I think you shared a clip once. Yeah, and I don't regularly watch him. Maybe I should. Eh?
Well, I think he had a really good take on this situation, and it was something that's been bugging me because, again, I've been really clear. I've been extremely, for the most part, disappointed with this administration this go round. I was very happy with the first term. Definitely, I prefer this than the alternative that was offered. I did not want another 4 of Biden or Kamala or whatever. I didn't want, so I'm glad we avoided that.
Is your main disappointment economic or how he's been handling the left?
Oh, yeah. First off, just delivering on promises. I don't think he's, like, for example, like this situation right here, we're seeing a lot of violence. We're seeing a lot of, like showing off or whatever. And this was Dave Smith's point. I think I agree with this. And he goes, and what we're not seeing is the actual deportation numbers we were looking for.
Well, I guess it depends who you listen to. I mean, the figures I heard were something like 10,000 in so many weeks or something like that. So
yeah, but that's nothing. Those numbers are right, but what they're not telling you is that we're in target to have slightly better deportation numbers than Biden, apparently, after everything is said and done. Okay, let that sink in. Better numbers than Biden.
Yeah.
And Obama has a record for deportation. And
that's wild. I have heard that too.
That is true. And not only that, he did not have to do all this show of force and make and like get people all riled up and beat up and stuff like that. So like, I do understand.
It's a different environment. To be fair, Felix, this is the era of signal chat and a lot more organization and funding and everything else of these groups that Obama didn't have to deal with.
Clearly,
like when you think about it, like the thing that strikes me, if you're like a modern Democrat, like Obama with his drone killing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's got to be, if you're like, where was Code Pink for him? They were there for Bush. I don't like Bush either, but I'm just saying, like,
that's really why Obama won, on top of everything. I think, like, the first black president, that was a big deal. That was a big selling point for me too. I was like, wow, that'd be part of history if I voted for, all that. I ate all that up. But on top of that,
Mitt Romney or John McCain have been any better morally or what? I mean, I don't know, maybe, but I'm just saying.
McCain's a war hawk. Again, they're both. They're wings of the same dragon.
There wasn't any compelling option.
No,
I mean, so that's. I mean, I will give Trump this. It was a pretty clear choice what you were getting in both elections.
Oh yeah. But again, it's like, the thing is if there was like this big show of force, right, and I would like these protests, or like the response to these protests, to be justified with higher deportation numbers and results. You know what I mean? What we're getting is.
Do you think he might be trying to play politics with the midterms on this, or do you think it's totally unrelated? He's just not very good at it.
I don't think he thinks like that. That's the one thing I'll give him credit for. Him personally, maybe the team around him thinks like that. Like as far, like the people who are in the politics game.
And what about infrastructure, Felix? Because it seems to me, after all those years, like I know myself, having inherited an organization that lost its administrative infrastructure and having to try to rebuild it from scratch, reverse engineering stuff.
Yeah,
it's slow. It's slow to get the pipeline built again.
Yeah. I think. All right. So very true.
I'm just devil's advocate today. Felix normally does it to me, so I'm going to do it to him.
I know, right? No, I actually like this. This is a cool little dynamic. But I think you're right there. But the problem is, and I can't prove this. I just think that basically, I think after Trump won, or before he won, somebody sat him down in the office and or he was at some event. And he was like, "Hey, why don't you go look at your son over there?" And saw the laser dot on his head or something. He goes, "Listen, okay, stop playing games.
Maybe
you're gonna get it." I 100% think so, because look at how different he is now than he was in those first 4 years.
We'll see. We'll see. There, you could write 20 books about him already. Yeah. I think that there's definitely whatever's going on is beyond what we see from both conservative and liberal media, and so because we know there's more to the story, but since we don't know what it is, our minds try to fill in the vacuum, and so depending on how optimistic or pessimistic you are, you're going to fill that vacuum. Like you look even across, like Jesse Kelly, Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
everybody's handled that gap in a very different way, right? So so it'll be interesting to see, and again, we don't know. I guess that's what I'd be saying is you hope for the best, but expect the worst sometimes.
All right, and then on top of underneath all of this, we have what's going on with Jefferson McCaffrey. Right. There's what's going on there, and again, like I 100% felt this, and Dave Smith kind of put this out there, and his he's done this before, but I felt this too. It's like he handled that really horribly, like and like he campaigned on that, and his switch in tone was so unnatural and unlike Donald Trump.
Someone walked in with a file folder and gave him some info he never knew.
Yeah, basically
that's what happened. So when people are saying, "Oh, he's trying to cover his own butt," no, that's not what happened. See, a man who had tried to cover his own butt would have done it from day one. No, he was so gung-ho this was going to happen, and this was kind of weird. Like from an outside perspective, it's kind of stupid. I think what he's doing is playing media cycle. He knows most people won't remember, but most of our audience will, and we do. Well, he comes out and he says, "Oh, it's unimportant, just a Democrat psyop, essentially." And there's a problem with that because the switch was so hard over that I think someone walked in with a folder and he looked at it and goes, "Oh crap!" Like whatever he saw was like, "Oh crap!"
You think it's a folder? I think he saw a laser dot. I think maybe or I mean, he literally felt one whiz through his head. The day after that.
Felix, his personality type strikes me as someone that he'd almost want to go that way, like to make a point.
Again, if it's different if it's you, and it's different if it's your kid, because now you're gambling with someone else's life or your family. And again,
as a hat tip to my Sede Vacanist friends, which we're not going down that rabbit hole tonight, but as a hat tip to them. You guys look up the story about Cardinal Siri. It's basically the same story that Felix is telling or speculating about President Trump. So that is interesting. It's not the theory I hold, by the way, but I
it's
listen
not
to
fact.
everything with an open mind.
This is me. I go down the rabbit hole, and I'm willing to play with the crazy theories. I'm not a journalist. I'm not nobody. I'm just a dude.
Well, maybe we won't know, but I'm hoping we know before. In a couple of years, like this stuff will either bear fruit or not. And I there's so many weird things, like in an era where we're just waiting for them to drop stories, Little Green Man and everything. Like
Well,
Who the heck knows what we're really
and no one
dealing with
cares
here?
about. Yeah. They keep trying.
Yeah.
They're trying to get us to care again, and they really
Yeah.
like. I think they dropped the ball.
I'm
And
still waiting
that's
for a
really
YouTube
good.
video on 3i Atlas again.
Oh, I know, right? Oh,
Remember, all of YouTube was
Poor
full of
Eye
this, and it's like
Atlas.
everybody and their dog, and it was like, oh, you guys just enough with the darn
Even
rock
Lyra
already.
was hooked on the 3i Atlas. I'm like, well, stop. But you know what's funny is I was telling her like 10, 15 years prior, like 2011, the
Right,
same thing happened with this other thing called Elenin, which was this comet that
right.
was out in a thing,
Yep.
and they were like, "Oh, Elenin means like an extinction level event, and this is the 9th extinction level event, and that's why it's called Elenin, ELE, all
You
this
know, they
stuff."
used to
He's like,
say that about my digestion in university,
"Extinction level event, yeah, yeah," but
but
we've
I'm
been there,
much better
man.
now. Anybody Night Court fan? I'm much better now.
Night
Remember
court.
Harry Stanley?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We just lost Bull, I think, too. That
All
guy,
right, there you
Richard
go.
Bull. He just
Well, okay,
passed.
Felix, the plethora of rabbit holes. I'm contagious. Well, let's get to some comments, and then we'll circle back if we need to.
We'll
We'll
circle
pull the
back.
Jen
We'll
Psaki
circle
and
back.
actually do it.
Yeah. Let me
I should
see.
get a little
So
graphic of her spinning around in a chair or something.
we'll go with probably the funniest comment of the night. So yeah, Chris, thank you
Yeah,
so much
this is
for
great, Chris.
chatting.
This won the comment of the day. I love it.
You, you see,
Jeepers turkey.
I love the
You
new
know
name
what?
of the show.
I
have
I
to
should do
admit,
that. You know, you're allowed, I think, 99 channels or something stupid under your username. So there we go. I should do a
yeah,
Jeepers
right.
turkey and
Cheaper Turkey.
just do like 6 episodes a year or something. I should have Chris on as a guest for it and Norm.
Yeah,
Hey
totally.
Norm, how you doing?
Hey, Norm. So Norm says, thanks, Bishop, for your great opening to the
Yep.
subject. I need to
Oh,
leave
he's
this
probably already gone.
conversation early tonight. I was listening as long as possible to this live broadcasting, and thank you. I know
Well, if you're
people.
listening to replay, Norm, thank you for coming as usual. Norms are one of our regular loyal audience.
Yeah, we got a very light chat load tonight. So guys, yeah, feel free to join the
Yeah, feel free
conversation.
to weigh in because it's yeah, you don't want leave Felix and I hanging. You don't want our rabbit holes either because it leads to
Oh
crazy
no,
places.
yeah. Hey, this might be what they need. All right, so
Maybe.
Norm says, I like to ask, what is a sanctuary and
Yeah.
what is it a sanctuary for? A sanctuary for worship of our Lord or
Yeah, what a
sanctuary
great
for
question.
criminals?
So again, I think Norm's probably gone off to bed, but I'll or away. But
No, he's still here.
so sanctuary can mean different things in different contexts, right? Well, I mean, we all know that, but so when we talk about a Catholic sanctuary, we're not talking about so basically what I was using it for in my little monologue was just sacred space. So it's sort of
Yeah.
generic. A specific Catholic understanding of sanctuary is that section of the church that's behind the altar rail and that lay people aren't ordinarily supposed to go into. There's de facto exceptions, but ideally, lay people don't cross the line there. And it's a connection from the old temple. So there was different courts, and as you get closer to the Holy of Holies, different categories of people were allowed to be close. So that's kind of a throwback to that. Most Protestant churches don't have that same concept, but they might call as a carryover, they'll call their altar space or the place where their pulpit is their sanctuary. And then the context that Norm is probably, and you can use the word sanctuary to mean there's a concept, and it has not been equally applied across Christian history. So it seems to be culturally and historically dependent. Does a church, by the fact it's a church, provide refuge from civil authority? The short answer is no, right? But the narrative or the idea, and indeed it did happen in certain cultures and certain periods of history, that a church was sort of like your get out of jail free zone. No one bothered you in a church. There was a respect for that. But when I was using it in the context of my monologue, I was really referring to the fact that not to harbor criminals, but that it's sacred space and that it shouldn't be intruded on. It shouldn't be intruded on by outsiders, but it also shouldn't be intruded on by law enforcement unless there's a clear and present danger. So if I'm a police officer and I know what I know about sacred space, and I'm on the warrant squad and I'm going to arrest the bad guy with an open warrant, I'm going to wait till he finishes his church service, and I'll make sure my partner's looking at the back entrance. But I'm not going to bother him during his. Now, that's not how most law enforcement in modern days are like they're going to roll. They're going to say, I don't care. I don't care if he's in the bathtub. I don't care if he's at church. I'm here to serve my warrant. No, you know what? He's in church. I can wait an hour. And I would. And
As long
I'm
as
sure there's
he's not
paperwork I
holding a
can
gun.
do, an email I can answer to the chief or whatever. There's stuff I
Right.
can do while I'm waiting for Johnny Butterskins to finish his church service. I'm not going to intrude upon him and his God. And the thing is, and that's the same as a mosque or anything else. I'm going to let people finish their thing, and then I'm going to take them into custody if I'm law enforcement. So I would just suggest certain respect. And it's funny, because again, there's good cops and bad cops, and cops that kind of get it, and cops that don't. There's just certain, in a small town, it used to be stereotypical that the cops would take care of the citizen, right? Like, okay, if he was a little, if he wasn't hurting anybody and he was just a little bit over the limit, to drive him home, they'd pour out the train, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you can't really do that stuff now in the age of body cameras and
Yeah.
it's a different world. But
Yeah,
you should respect people's worship space. Same way, if a criminal's wife's having a baby and she's in labor, and it's real, it's like it's in the hospital. It's not like some scam to get him escape, and where he is. He's in the room. There's only one entrance. You can wait for an hour, right? Some people say, I don't have to wait for a criminal. No, it's a respect for another fellow human. Like, I don't care if they're criminal or not. There's a respect. Now, obviously, if it's a legitimate officer safety thing, then fine. That's a different thing too. But see, some of this stuff's not legitimate. Like all this, the swatting, that drives me nuts. Like, it's like, okay, guys,
that's a weapon.
Once that happens, like you got to be smarter than the idiot who called you, right? Like, you got to be like, what's the odds there's a real hostage situation? You got all this tech, you got infrared drones, you got things that can see through walls with an iPad, you've got all this stuff. Like, there's no need to go full hardcore because you're bored.
Yeah, knock on the door and go with your gut.
Right. You figure it out. You send a fake pizza dude with a gun in his back pocket, or whatever, a cop dressed up as a pizza dude. You do something. You figured it out. You don't go in guns blazing and end up shooting a 3-year-old. So it's like, it's common sense, and most cops have it, but you hear some of these swatting stories that are just ridiculous. So I just can't believe that people fall for it. Like, isn't there some training at the 911 operator school at how to determine? I mean, it's not their call what level of force, but surely they can gather the information necessary so that the commander can make the decision of what level of force to go in on. And I'd say you go in with lights off and no sirens, and someone puts in a some sort of surveillance tech to figure out if there's a real threat. And if you see a picture of a bunch of guys with AK-47s, well, then sure, and you're going to breach, you're going to do all your stuff. But I mean, come on now. If it's like Cat Turd, if you guys know who Cat Turd is on Twitter, if it's Cat Turd and he's been swatted like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times, it's like he's just a conservative commentator that people hate. So like, the chances of you requiring to go full SWAT assault are not high. Or if they are, it's because of some idiots in his bushes, not to break into his house.
Yeah.
Which is why you have infrared cameras and all this other. There's some weird X-ray they can see through houses now. I don't know what it's called, but they've got the tech.
Let me see what else we got here. This is actually it. What grieves me the most now is that aberration, example, cursing others, has become almost normalized, and true goodness, blessing and prayer, blatantly ridiculed. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, Norm's right.
He's right. Let me see. He also says this, and he just typed this. My question was really rhetorical regarding sanctuary cities versus real sanctuary for holiness and prayer. Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's just different use of the word. It's different use of the word.
You said something earlier, Father. It was like, listen, we don't intrude on you. You don't intrude on me if you're atheist or something. Like, and this is what. Let's be fair here. That the atheist still benefits from living in the Catholic tradition, and instead of the other way around. It's because like our intrusion or the Catholic intrusion on their life is things like forgiveness and those types of situations, and things that don't exist for the atheists, or at least for the crazy leftist.
Scott Adams and the secular philosopher Stefan Molyneux. I don't know if he's still secular or not, but that's basically what he said. That they're not religious, but they're grateful for Christian social order. Like they're like, it's just the best frame. And it's 2,000 years old, right? So why would you Why would you use a frame that's 20 years old or 6 years old when you can use a frame that's 2,000 years old or more, based on stuff
Yeah.
even more ancient?
And
And
that's
just
actually,
it works. And it's like our operating system for our civilization. So the thing is that when you start trying to invent a new operating system, and then you wonder why your email program doesn't work because Felix has an Apple and I have a PC, and it's like, well, why doesn't my email program work on Felix's computer? Well, different operating system. Well, that's kind of what's going to happen. Is like there's two ways to be multicultural, right?
right.
There's one kind that you say, okay, everybody's going to adopt the melting pot model. Everybody's going to adopt the common values of the host country. And that's what the US has always had, a melting pot. In Canada, most European countries, they have what they call a mosaic. And their idea is, no, everybody retains their distinctive, unless of course you're white hetero male, you're not allowed that.
Yeah.
But everybody else is
Right.
allowed to group. And so the thing is that that in the end, that's not a real smart way to play it. It's smart to do, I think, what the Americans do, like be proud to be an Italian American or a African American or a Jewish American or whatever. I mean, you have a history, and there's no, that's good to keep what's good, ditch what's bad. The Scottish, let's pick on the Scottish, because my last name, if you guys didn't know, my last name is Scott Gaelic. Now I'm a mixture of Irish, Scot, and English, but by origin. But the name is Gaelic. It's a misspelt, bastardization of a Gaelic word that means large amount. Now, large amount of what? I'd love to tell you charm or wit or holiness or wisdom, but my mother would say Blarney. But that's fine. Mom's not
right.
But anyway, no, all the joking aside, and you know what? I should tell her. I tell the audience this, and she'll say, "I would never say such a thing." It'd be kind of funny. But it makes it a little fun. But here's the thing. So with all the part of me that's Scottish, well, what are Scottish people known for? If you're going to make fun of them, they're known for being cheap. And what else, Felix? They're cheap, stubborn, and they eat weird things like haggis, right? So I mean, there's some crazy things in Scotland, right?
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, those are all true. Okay, that's a stereotype, but it's the exception again that proves the rule. There's cultural tendencies. So the tendency to be very frugal is a former Scottish virtue. Now it's not now, or in some cases, place. So
yeah, some other races get the frugal
well, they do,
stereotype.
But we're going to stick to Scottish so we don't get canceled.
Stick to Scottish. So that's right.
No one ever got mad. No one ever got canceled for making fun of haggis. All right,
that's right.
So the thing is that the Scottish people, like I have a very ancient ancestor who invented some sort of milling machine.
Wow.
And so the thing is that they were industry, and so even the cultural cliche in the original Star Trek had Scotty the engineer. They were inventors, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, and that's a funny story because the actor who played Scotty was Canadian. He was not Scottish, and he just accents were his hobby. But anyway, the thing is that the Scots had this appearance, sort of like Germans did, of being great engineers. And right now, Scotland mostly culturally is a welfare state. It doesn't produce anything, So it's. I mean, there's tourism and there's but it's really in comparison to what it once was. It's a shadow, and I think that's what the U.S. was facing and what mainstream churches are facing. And so all of us are looking at this. You have two choices. You can either follow the path of restoration, which I hope you guys are, because you're watching this and that's the mission. You're either part of the path of restoration or you're the path of managed decline. And that's what most of Europe's on, managed decline. And that's what, what's been going on here. That's why Trump's such a pattern interrupt. Listen, you can hate him, you can love him, or you can hate him.
Right.
The man does not believe in managed decline. Right? So that's kind of why he rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah. I kind of just I wanted more. This go around, I'm not getting what I was hoping for.
I think Vance is going to be more Trumpian than Trump, but we'll see.
Trump.
He might disappoint you too.
Yeah.
Felix is a strong critic here.
No, JD Vance might be good. I definitely I have my reservations one way or the other, but I think the big issue is I don't know if he's going to even get a chance, because this is another thing. This is kind of a joke. It's the Democrats were, by the end of Biden's administration, the Democrats were a joke. There is no reason. There's absolutely no reason that the Democrats should even be in contention for taking it at the midterms. And again, that speaks to the absolute failure of the Republican Party.
Well, maybe.
Then
You know what, Felix, you and I agree on almost everything, but I will say this, to give credit where credit is due here, and I'm sorry, there's a lot of Republicans that irritate me, but I got to say it is still kind of hard when the media, what I mean, they don't even present both sides. They don't even try.
No.
There's not even it's not like it's one little slant towards the party of your favor. They don't even try. So we're left consuming our media from, I think Joe Rogan tries to shoot straight with it. I don't agree with a lot of stuff that Joe believes in, but I think he tries. I think he tries to give you what he truly believes is true. I don't think he deliberately lies to us, or I don't think Benny Johnson gives us a lie. I mean, Benny believes what Benny believes. And so I do appreciate, people's honest differences of opinion. Same with Tucker Carlson. I mean, Tucker basically sewered himself from so many opportunities because he serves the truth he perceives to be true, but at great personal cost. So it's kind of interesting. And then you get the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world who take the cash and run.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, well, that's interesting, right? Yeah, like, listen, I feel like we got past the BS media by the time we got to the end of Biden, because, again, if we just go by that election night, right, this most recent one, it was all we were getting was that, like, sharp as attack, this, that, or the other. Then they were just setting up Kamala as best as they could, and it failed miserably.
It was we already fun, though, got
it was fun, but I'm saying, like, it's too recent for it. Like we can't blame the media this time. I'm so, like, we can't blame the mainstream media, because a lot of us are kind of awake to the mainstream media being garbage.
You think so, Felix? But I'm telling you, there's a guy at our parish, and you know who he is, and we're not going to say his name. And if you watch it, I'm going to hear it on Sunday. But here's the thing: we know this guy. The guy is smart. He's got multiple degrees. He's he's clever. He's nice. He's a good Catholic. And he sees the world 100% different, and he self-describes as independent, but he almost, I wonder if I was, I mean, you can't be sort of a normative Christian and a Democrat in this era, right? So, but imagine if you could for a moment. I wonder if he would just be contrary, like, because there's some people like that, right? They love the banner, and they love to push back against another person that they perceive to be of equal intelligence.
Yeah.
So they'll take an opposite position for the entertainment purpose.
Sure.
And, I even do it sometimes, more so when I was younger, as a kid. And I would just, and myself and my friend, Father John Melnick, God rest his soul, he and I did that all the time.
Yeah.
He and I would just fight, and we'd have an audience of seminarians, and they would just watch us debate. And it was all good fun. We actually agreed the same side.
Right. No, but like, we lost that. We've lost that as a country. Yeah, that's pretty sad. No, I agree with you 100%. It's like, again, even like the stuff we disagree on, I don't even know if we really disagree on it. It's like we still
don't
agree
disagree
on the same
any
stuff.
Value, Felix. I think we disagree on
methods
prediction sometimes, and maybe guess a motivation. But that hasn't. All that is just, I think I tend to be a little bit more rose-colored glasses than you.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, which is good.
but see, the funny thing is now, some of you guys, now most of you watching on air do not see me from the pulpit, right? But more than one person's remark, like, I get up there, I'm fire and brimstone. And then one-on-one and coffee, or if I sit down with you with a beer or coffee, I'm I'm just interested in your journey. How do we get you to heaven? Do we see so I'm a lot more laid back one-on-one. Like, I'm kind of like what you're seeing here. Like, it's not like I'm a different person up there, but I tell people, in tradition, you lay down the maniple on the on the missal. I said, that's a symbol of Christ's service. You put that down. We lay it aside because we're up here to speak his truth. And I speak it very bluntly. And I tell people, my job up there is to paint that narrow path. And then afterwards, my job is to deal with you as an adult. And, I'm a coach, I'm a cheerleader, I'm a rump kicker sometimes, but mostly you're an adult. So, you make your own decisions. I'm just there because every once in a while it takes someone who cares about you, who's outside of your vortex, to steer you. And that goes for all of us, me included. In fact, I see with rose-colored glasses so badly. It's so much a characteristic of me that I protect the church from myself. How's that? Well, we have a decision to ordain somebody or whatever. I never make that decision alone. I make my own decision. I make my own observations. And then I always have senior priests sign off on it. Because if my clergy doesn't also assess that someone is going to fit, I've got to listen to them. And the thing is, I might have a rapport because I'm pretty hands-on with our seminarians in the sense of getting to know them and obviously if they're in, then I like them. But then, some of their supervisors, some of the people, they see things I don't. And then there's that interchange, and then we see what's fixable and what isn't. But yeah, so there you go. Felix and I in real time, which is funny because I think people that don't watch the show would think Felix is the nicer guy. Felix is more optimistic than me because they only saw me at the pulpit.
Right.
But I'm a pussycat. Right. Speaking of which, if you guys haven't already, last episode, just watch last week's episode and fast forward through. I had the cat on my head, and I told Felix, I said, well, you wouldn't believe what the cat did. So over here, there's supposed to be 2 monitors. That crazy cat attacked the monitor and it broke one. It was brand new. You can't make this stuff up. So I got a new monitor coming on Friday, but I got one on a nice sale. It was a 48-hour sale at Best Buy, thankfully, because that monitor, it can't be 6 weeks old. And of course, it was just beyond the return time. But even then, I wouldn't have returned it because it wasn't broken because of their fault. It's my fault for letting the crazy cat near it. But anyway.
I was like, you know what, to illustrate the difference, Father Eagle's like, you know what, guys, as long as we're all looking for the real, true, and good, and I'm over here like, you know what, the Spanish Inquisition got a tough.
I love the Spanish Inquisition.
Like that. No, I know,
especially the Monty Python version.
Oh yeah, because you never expect it.
No, I'm probably okay. So here's something that's I'm probably one of the few clergy that you guys know that I'm a fan of the Albigensian Crusade. True story. So look that up.
My memory retention is so poor. Like I've done these deep dives on the Crusades and stuff, and almost instantly.
Oh no, I didn't mean to. I was telling them to look it up.
No, in general, no, but I've been doing it. I was like, oh. No, like it's funny because again, this is one of the things that I talked about that I talk about is like they raised us to hate the Crusades and the Inquisition and stuff.
Yeah, no, Crusades are wonderful.
And you're like, no, it's
colonization was wonderful. I mean, in terms of when I hear these people growling, whoa, you're gonna whine to us now that we stopped you from sacrificing babies and people with their beaten hearts and you didn't want baptism and your ancestors go to heaven. You're asking me to apologize for that? Get off my lawn, you silly fool. So I don't. You know what they're doing in Canada? This is ridiculous. They get up there. I acknowledge these land claims. Okay, well, what are we going to do for this? Do we got to roll a Bradley up there with 30mm chain gun and say, okay, symbolically, we're conquering you. Now we're going to buy you dinner. Like something fun. We're just, okay, you're now conquered people. The terms of surrender is we're going to buy you lunch and you're going to shut up about this stupid land claim stuff.
Forever.
Okay, now I'm going to get flamed and cancel for that probably. But, I mean, but seriously, this is ridiculous. It's like you can only go to the trough so many times, folks. And if there's injustices, it's like, what am I going to do now? I'm going to sue some of the people in France for the Norman invasion. I'm going to sue Norway and Denmark for, defiling my great grandmother. Like, where does this stuff end? Right. So mistakes were made. horrible things were done, they weren't done to anybody alive to one another. Alive, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you offer equal opportunity under the law and equal opportunity to prosper, there's really no more grievance left. So, let's acknowledge wrong was done and move on. Stop blaming other people for your bad choices.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what else we got? We usually get a little bit more banter from comments, but that's it.
We do, but we don't have some of our regulars. So I do really appreciate Chris's comment because I still laughing.
That was great. No, and Norm is always awesome. Yeah, but yeah,
Norm,
Team Dale. Team Dale's gone.
Norm's always with us. Yeah, Norm's always with us. And so anyway, so the and then okay, you guys still there? My screen in front of me just went blank, so I'm gonna hit a button here.
Oh.
But
gotcha.
Yeah. So no, that's good. Well, we don't if we're all done, we can be done. But
yeah, we could wrap up a little early. It's up
we
to
don't
you.
normally finish early. Well, unless with something on, we should probably try to keep it on the general topic. So basically, it boils down to, folks, that you want to respect people's spiritual space. Which the problem is, and the real point, the real, I guess, meat of what I'm trying to share here that you might not have considered, is that secular society no longer respects sacred space. So there should be a certain, like. In Canada, for example, they won't let a military chaplain out of the holy name at the cenotaph. And the problem with that is that the soldiers all basically, there's some Jewish and there's some other religions as well. But at the end of the day, most of the people that were dying in World War II were of one faith. And so there's often crosses, cemeteries, and there's also Stars of David, and there's stuff like that. And there's no reason why someone can't say Jewish prayers too. But I guess what I'm getting at is that we shouldn't be ashamed of our past. And even if we, as a society, don't have the same zeal for these old ways, at least when we're honoring those people from those old ways, we should honor it as they did. And I don't believe in the managed decline. I believe that we're on the beginning of a new spring, or a new epoch. And I could be wrong, but here's my theory: it's like God's going to either fix it, or he's going to wrap it all up. I think I'm going to live to see it either be fixed or wrapped all up. And we'll see. If I'm wrong, Felix can make fun of me, and I'll deserve it.
No, I think like your assessment is a win-win situation. You know what I mean?
Well,
can you hear me okay?
So I get asked, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I had to walk Sophie while I was talking to you. I had to walk my dog real quick and stay on there.
But so here's the thing. People ask me, this actually won't surprise most of you. The most common question that I probably get asked by somebody that's, has a little bit of rapport, and they trust me enough that they figure I'm not going to think they're weird for asking the question. And they'll ask me, do you think we're in end times? That's one of the most common questions. And I have gotten that since was first a seminarian in 1992. And the thing is, I used to say, well, first off, your end could be tomorrow. An airplane engine could fall out of a nacelle and fall on your head. And I used to say that for years. And then someone came to me and said, oh, you won't believe it. You won't believe it. In Pasco County, an airplane engine fell on someone's front lawn. No one was hurt. But it does happen. Airplane engines fall out and they fall on your head.
That's right.
And so anyway, and I said, well, thank goodness it didn't hit a parishioner or me. I would never hear the end of it because I used to joke about that. But anyway, my point is that you never know when your end is. It could be this very night. And so you don't want to be morbid about it, but you also want to be aware. You don't want to put off your spiritual development. And Fulton Sheen used to say that a soul is taken at any age when it's ripe for heaven. And so the thing is that, your end times could be tomorrow. So don't worry too much about it. Now, in terms of, there are certain things we know that are going to happen before the end, right? So there's going to be a church persecution of real Christians, and there's going to be an apostasy in the church. And the apostasy means they're going to forsake the ancient faith. and arguably that's in progress now. So arguably, so is there data points in favor of the end times? Yes, yes. In fact, I'm not the only one that says it. Cardinal Ejek of Utrecht, Cardinal Ejek said yes, we have apocalyptic signs. Cardinal George of Chicago, about 3 cardinals of Chicago ago, he believed we were in end times. John Paul II hinted at it. Benedict did. Benedict and Francis told everybody to read Lord of the World, which was a fiction by Hugh Benson, 1907. And Lord of the World is about the end of the world. And both those popes said, it's being unfolded today. Leo said to read it too, but he didn't say that second part. But the other two said it's unfolding today. And Leo and Benedict can be arguably on 2 different sides of that story. If you read it, you'll see what I mean. So it is interesting because there's definitely data points. And if you were to ask my personal opinion, so this is not binding, this is not de fide, it's a theological opinion, which you can disagree with. But if you were to ask me what I really think, I think God is going to give us an opportunity for a sign of grace and restoration, sort of like Jonah's knocking on the door of Nineveh. And in Nineveh's case, it accepted God, and there was a period of repentance, and there was a period of grace. And then the full apostasy will come, if that's the case. So that's my opinion. Now, if we don't accept that offer of that reprieve, then we'll go right to persecution. So you're going to know from how it all unfolds whether we are or not. Because what's different, people say, well, the church has had hard times, society has had hard times, look at the fall of the Roman Empire, and they'll give you like 40 different things, right? Yeah, but the church never really taught contrary to what it taught before. Like, that's a new thing. That's my Sadie friends say that the problem happened at John the 23rd, and then people like me tend to think, yeah, I agree with a lot of your points, guys, but I think the real breach didn't happen until after Benedict. And I mean, we just agree to disagree. But there's some definite shenanigans going on in Christianity. Like, if you take a book from 1920 and any one of the main churches, like Catholic, Anglican, Lutheran, Presbyterian, they actually teach a different religion. Like, you only know this if you read old books. So, and then there's all these rationalizations. You have to understand development of doctrine. You have to understand hierarchy truth. Yeah, you know what our Lord said to this? Let your yes be yes and your no be no, and anything else comes from the evil one. So that's my answer to that. We have to have congruence. So even if you're a good pagan, one of the data points that you're, in alignment with God to the best of your ability to perceive him, if you're not a Christian, is a congruence, that your beliefs match your behavior. So obviously now, if your beliefs are pretty evil, that doesn't count. But if you seek the real, true, and good, and you try to align your beliefs, and at least you're trying to seek God to the best of your ability. Of course, if you're a Christian, that's different. Then you got baptism, and you've got the whole Christian covenant. But it's again beyond the scope of getting into that too much today. But just to say, if you'd ask me, there's going to be numerous deceptions of Christianity. I think it's already taken hold, and we might have an era of grace. And how long that'll last, I don't know. I know some people say 30, 40 years. It's not going to be like this. It's not going to be like 2 years, likely. It'll be a period of time, but it's not going to be long. It's not going to be like another 5 centuries. We don't have another 5 centuries on Earth. I would, if I was a betting person, I'm not. And there was some way I could know, like, that I can make the bet, and we can find out who's right. We call up God and say, hey, God, tell us for the sake of our silly bet. Which, of course, God doesn't work that way. But
yeah, right.
if we could, I think world has 200 years tops before it spiritually, 200 years tops, and could be like less than 20. So it'll be interesting to see. We're going to know by how it all unfolds. But how the Christian church decides to reconcile itself to God, it needs a Vincent Ferrer. So if you don't know that saint, look it up. Saint Vincent Ferrer. Even if you're Protestant, read about Vincent Ferrer, because you know what? He was outside of the institutional church at the time. He's still saint, but he was outside of for a variety of reasons. But look him up and look about his holiness movement. He was basically a John the Baptist of the late Middle Ages, and his nickname was the Angel of the Apocalypse. He wasn't an angel, of course, but yeah, you should look him up. Vincent Ferrer. He's a patron saint of the Philippines, I believe. So there you go. Oh, there's Tina.
Yeah, Tina says, I watched the certificate series on angels and demons with Dr. Taylor Marshall. He interviewed renowned exorcists in the Catholic Church. One said, Our Lady stated that this is the most evil generation that
Wow.
has lived since Adam and Eve.
Really?
Father Dan Rehill says it, and I know who she's speaking of.
Wow.
Yeah, Father Dan Rehill's.
I
Yeah,
have
he's an
never seen
exorcist.
anything by him, but maybe it sounds like maybe I should. So the thing is that yeah, I'm not completely surprised. Cardinal Sarah said recently that any country that sort of like kills its people, or I shouldn't use that word, unalives its
Yeah.
people through
Wow.
assisted unaliving.
Yeah.
In
Right.
Canada, they call it MAID. The acronym is MAID.
Yeah.
And yeah, it kills over 10,000 people. I think it's tens of thousands of people a year. And I
And they
find that
like guilt
particularly
trip half
harsh.
of them.
Yeah, I find it particularly harsh because I used to work for military chaplaincy there, and one of the jobs I had was like suicide counselor. And for us to, for them to put all this money to send me on training on a course and all this kind of stuff. And then, now if a veteran, if a veteran doesn't have a family and he comes and he says, I'm depressed, they'll ask him if he considered unaliving himself.
Yeah.
And the problem is, a depressed person, they might actually take you up on that.
Yeah.
And Oregon tried to do this. I don't know if they were successful. It was sort of bouncing around. Kate Brown came in, and but they wanted to be able to put to sleep. Not only do they want to put you to sleep, if you were mentally ill and 3 doctors said you had to be put to sleep, that's what they wanted, and there wasn't any real clear legal recourse. So I don't think that it ever passed, but I remember looking at it and thinking, oh my goodness. Because see, the problem is they were running around saying that people who didn't agree with them politically were mentally ill. So you see where this could go, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're mentally ill, we commit you.
Absolutely.
Well, it's science. 3 doctors said you're nuts. Well, 3 doctors could be having dinner with Hillary. Like, that doesn't
We're
mean
gonna
that they
put
don't.
you in the unaliving chamber.
Right. And then
And
what appeal do you have? Like, I never got that way. I'm being intentionally a little bit hyperbolic, but what I'm getting at is if you extend it to its logical course, that is what you get.
it can 100% lead to that. Yeah. And we see them we see them push that way. Yeah, I've heard that too. I mean, the only thing that I could say is because when I hear something like that, I think of like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
I think of Canaan, right? And I
Yep.
think of those would probably be the only times, or the only like Old Testament time, pre-Roman, where it's I think was at its like real worst, and that maybe can compete with how crazy it is nowadays.
Well, it might really be worse today.
It might
It
really be
is
worse
true.
today. I agree.
You keep in mind that a lot of this crazy hedonism was only done by certain social classes and whatever, right? So like that also there's a difference between being evil and not ever being exposed to the gospel and then having the gospel and rejecting it. So that's 2 very different things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
our Lord himself says it. He says no one who puts hand to plow and turns away is fit for the kingdom of heaven. Right? But look at how he treats the good thief. So the good
Yeah.
thief, right up until the end, right, was a bad guy. But then and because he accepted he was, and he and essentially asked for Christ's mercy, he got it. So people that are bad can be saved, but people that pretend to be good and simulate Christianity and then turn away from it, well, I think there's an argument to be made that they're kind of hooped. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you can always repent of, but what did our Lord say, right? If you put your hand to plow and turn away. Yep.
Yeah. Let me
Next
see.
one.
This is the last one for now. Interesting thing you just said at lunch last week. Someone said it feels like we're living in Sodom and Gomorrah times.
Yeah.
100%. And you know what? And this goes to Father Rehill's point, which I wish we were to get him or so some other exorcist would be so fascinating. But again, like I would say that this started really becoming parallel like in the 90s and the 2000s, when the LGBT movement was starting to take form. And again, when they co-opted the rainbow flag, looking at it in retrospect, Again,
Well,
that's a spiritual attack. That's a
yeah, but they did
that's
and they didn't. Like you wonder sometimes if God doesn't allow some of the stuff to happen the way it does to, like, I don't want to say it's a sense of humor, but you'll know what I mean when I explain it.
like
So,
yeah.
okay, so why is 666 such a bad number? Do you know?
Oh, is it falls short of 7, I guess?
Right, right. So
Okay.
the flag they use is not the full spectrum. They take a color out. There's 6 instead of
Mm,
7 colors there.
that's right. Oh, yeah, and the
So
6 always goes into
and then
itself.
the sin, right, is the same sin. What's the prime sin of the light bearer? Who a third of
Pride,
heaven's cast out, right? Yeah.
pride,
So,
Pride month,
but see, the
pride
thing is,
parade.
not everybody like it's so you gotta okay. There are different, like, again, we're not talking about acts. Acts can be sinful, and we're not excusing, we're not whatever. But I am saying there's
Yeah.
a there's a spectrum on intent to rebel against God. Like, there are some people that have very unchaste lives that truly believe that God wants them to be happy on earth, and therefore God loves me, and therefore I'm meant to be happy on earth, so therefore this must be permissible. And that's what they truly believe. All right.
They're wrong, but they
And then you
believe
have people that go to these parades and they carry Satan heads on sticks and
Yeah,
pentagrams and stuff. Right? So I'm just
that's right.
saying, I'm not saying that anything excuses anything, but rather that we are dealing with different, and there's a big difference between the people that are running around, pouring goat blood and we're doing weird stuff, right? That are
Yeah.
just LARPing basically. And then there's the real evil ones that are, they're into some very bad stuff, which we
Well,
can't talk
I'll
about
tell
here
you
on YouTube.
I'll tell you what too, that I think it was Father Rehill also that says something like every church probably has 1 or 2 undercover
Yeah,
people in there that are actually like Satanists or pagan of some sort,
right,
that go to the church to either try to cast spells on the church, on the
right.
churchgoers,
Yep.
or just infiltrate, or like to get the Eucharist, things like that. So
Well, ever since they started allowing communion in hand, so a lot of practitioner of the dark arts go to modern churches where they can acquire the Blessed Sacrament. They can take it home. There's some videos. I should really clip these things when I say them, but it was before I started YouTube. But I'll never forget this. They had a camera on people receiving communion, and the guy knew there was a camera. He looked right at it. He took the host from the Eucharistic minister. He waved the host at the camera and then stuck it in his pocket, smirked, and walked on.
yeah,
So that exists. And I mean, even in my day, 30 years ago in the seminary, when I did my parish year, underneath hymnals and stuff were consecrated hosts under the
yeah.
under the under the pews, under the kneeler, under the hymnals. It's
You
like,
should have been burned at the stake. Like, I mean, God
well, I
forgive me for
mean,
saying
the
that. It's
thing
like
is,
that's kind of crazy. You get
it,
tackled and beat up or something like
you
back
know,
500 years ago.
if you're not going
Or-
to receive them, just don't go up or go get a blessing or just,
no, this is different. Yeah,
yeah,
no. The intention was to take him. The intention was to disrespect. And again,
right.
this actually ties in to what to Don Lemon.
Yeah, yeah. No,
The
absolutely. So
intention.
this is why I'm saying, just because someone goes to church doesn't mean that they're, what Don Lemon did, as bad as it was, is less offensive to God than the Catholic who receives communion in the hand and sticks it into the hymnal. Like,
Oh
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just, how do you fix that, right? I mean, jeepers, that's serious. That's not only
It's like an open
excommunicatable.
wound.
Yep.
It's
Yeah,
like an open
absolutely.
wound in the church that it's like it's all this.
Absolutely.
It's like this flesh, body of Christ that's unaccounted for. That's going out into the
Well, yeah,
space.
it's sacrilege. Just, it's nuts. I was once at a church. I was the assistant to an archbishop this was when I was a seminarian. I was assistant to an archbishop, and I used to help him with his, like, I did his MC for his confirmation, and I was his chauffeur, and I did all kinds of stuff for him. And we would go, like, if you went to a town of any size, say 60,000 people, there'd be a church that was fairly conservative, and there'd be a church that was crazy, like liberal. And it would have like an altar on wheels, and sofas for seating and just weird stuff. Well, the
Right.
weirdest one was I went into this church, like everything's on rolling wheels, altar, cross, baptismal font, everything's on these caster like wheels, and the floor is hardwood. It's beautiful floor, but I mean, it was just weird rolling all this stuff
Right.
around. And they came out with what they were going to attempt to consecrate this thick molasses bread. It looked like one of those molasses cookies, but it was really thick, like a pancake, but really thick.
Wow. Okay.
And so invalid matter. And then they would put, again, I don't even know whether the mass was like very doubtful validity, probable invalidity for everything. They would put what was supposed to be the precious blood, whether it was consecrated or not correctly, I don't know. And they were using wine glasses. And then what would happen is, after they were finished, taking no care, they all put it in this big table beside where the priest sat. And they referred to the ablution of the vessels as doing the dishes. And I was horrified through all this. Like, I'm a seminarian, and I'm like horrified. So I'm like trying to, again, not to cause waves, but I'm saying, like, let me do this for you, or let me fix this. Oh, no, get it. So here's the thing. And I find out they didn't put this substantial bread because it's huge. It doesn't fit into a tabernacle. Not that there was one in this church. There wasn't one in the other way, but you know what the tabernacle was, Felix? You can't make this stuff up. A deep freezer. And there was Ziploc bags and bags and bags of this bread. And I lost it. I went to the poor old Archbishop. He was like 70 something. He retired at 75, but he was like early 70s. I went up one side of him, down the other. Like, it's a wonder I didn't get fired for all kinds of stuff, but I just lost it. And I remember my closing line with him, because I went on this little blast of a rant. And then when I finished, I just said, well, at least on the plus side, they didn't need a sanctuary light, because that little red light on the freezer, right? I was just totally mocking it. Yeah. Anyway, it was just, but anyway, that's what we're dealing with. And then I'd get flack from other Catholics saying, don't tell people like that. Don't tell people this stuff because it'll scandalize them. And I'm like, guys, it doesn't get better by hiding it. It only gets better with sunlight.
Yeah,
because
you get called out and caught hiding it. It makes it look way worse.
Absolutely.
Worse.
And so the thing is, if people hear the stories, like we all have our origin story, why we ended up in various groups, right? Or various parts of the church. When you understand where someone's coming from, you understand why they are the way they are. Like, and that goes for all of us. And the thing is, I can't handle most Novus Ordo churches. I just simply can't. And the last time I was in one, the priest is wonderful. They're sweet people. I get it. We try to believe in the same. That just no reverence to the Blessed Sacrament, and just no basic concern like for what God wants. Everything is the optic of what I want, what I need for my emotional comfort, what I need for, and I just no. I just at a certain point I had it and done. And I used to go to Novus Ordo funerals for parishioners and stuff. Like if it was a relative of theirs and they went to another church, and I'd go with them and I'd sit in the pew. And I don't anymore. I'll go to the wake. I'm not going anymore. I can't. It's too much. If I have to watch one more blue-haired crazy woman giving our Lord out like a Pez dispenser, nope, not doing it. No. Sorry. Been there, done it, used to work for it, won't anymore. Done. So, and I don't understand how any conservative can put up with a modern church. I really don't, because they hate you. They're like, they barely tolerate a conservative. Barely.
Yeah. Yeah. And
just shut up and pass the basket.
And they don't even try to convert you now anymore. It's like, no, they just don't like you. Yeah. You get ostracized, you get kind of boxed out.
And they say, well, it's membership. It's, if you have to stay here, you can't go to heaven. Listen, Mr. Pachamama, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that God isn't in communion with the state church of China or the Pachamama. So,
yeah.
It's unpopular things. And again, I say this, but you're never going to have me crap on you if that's like, there's people that fight from the inside, and I admire that. It's not for me. I tried. Yeah. I did everything I could. And then when I came to tradition, it was like the stages of grief, because I really felt lied to by the modernist church. And so I went through the process, and I just realized, I look back on it all, and I had to go through. I had to go through the denial and the bargaining and the anger.
Yeah, all the stages agree.
And then finally there was the acceptance, and I was free. Right?
That's the saddest one.
The best line, we're gonna close with this, but I gotta tell you this best line. So, priest friend of mine, it was a long story, and I got the mainstream church very upset at me for something I really peed in the pickles with them. I offended them, just being me. And I didn't get, there was a petition I had asked for, and I was not getting it. And so the priest came and said to me, and he says, Mr. Mikul, he says, they really don't like you. And it was true, so it's fine. There's good and bad in every group. There's people that love God and they want to share him with other people and have a zeal for souls. And it's always great when I find the exception that proves the rule, right? There's a friend of mine who was a diocesan priest with the mainstream church, and he tends kind of liberal, but he's one of the rare liberals that he's liberal because he thinks that's what God wants, not because he wants to teach the church something that he thinks he knows better. So that's again a different attitude. And although I don't agree with him, I know he tries to serve the same God I do. So I appreciate that. And you agree to disagree. And you say, well, we'll see what God does, see what he unfolds. I say that about my life and Felix and everybody else too. But on that note, Felix, I think we should wrap
totally.
up. And I thank you all for joining us. And we did make it to 11. I thought we were going to have 20. If Tina saved the day. So
totally.
Tina saved the day with the last bit of comments. Otherwise, we would have probably wrapped up a little early. So next week we're going to have a pause in our regular program. We're gonna have a show, but we're gonna do. I'd like to do a tribute to Archbishop John Humphreys, and so he'll be buried that day. And so I'm gonna see if I can get that together, and hopefully beforehand I might do a little pre-record and air it, and then we'll be there for the chat. And what else to tell you? Really, that's just the news, and then we'll resume. I've got some topics planned, and I'm going to bounce them off Felix and see what he wants to do next. But next week we'll honor Archbishop Humphreys and a little bit of his history. And you know what? It may not get a lot of views. Some of you, the old faithful, will be here, but it's probably good we have something on the record about him, because it's an interesting character, and I'll try to keep it as interesting as possible. So anyway, you have a very good week, and we'll end with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. God, our Father, creator of all things, we praise and thank you for all your gifts. Help us to see what you wish us to see as we navigate through this world. Keep us free from all threats, spiritual and physical. Incline our heart to true virtue. May we be more concerned about what you think of us than what the world thinks of us. May our virtue be real and not just a signal. And may Almighty God bless each one of us, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Amen. God bless you. God protect you. And there's no cat on my head today, so that's good too. So see you next week.
All right. Have a good night.